Hello, my name is Jordan Bogart and I'm a software support technician with Concordia Technology Solutions. Today I'm making a short video that's going to walk you through how you can find a transaction in your event log. Now there's a few different reasons you might need to do this. You might want to know, for example, who entered a particular transaction, or you're wanting to know maybe okay, the transaction says it was recorded for this particular date, but that might not match the date it was actually entered in Church360 Ledger. There can be a discrepancy on that. So you might be trying to track down when the transaction was actually entered into Church360 Ledger. Either way, the event log is going to let you track down this information, but there's a few steps you'll have to go through in order to be able to pull up that transaction in your event log, and that's what this video is going to walk through today. So to get started here, I'm going to go ahead and open up my Church360 Ledger website and get to my home screen. So let's go ahead and do that right here. And here we are inside of Church360 Ledger. Now the transaction I'm thinking of today, we have it recorded here in March of this year. Okay, so March 2021. And I can see here that the transaction I'm interested in is this transfer that happened on March 24th, 2021. Now, I want to find out who actually entered this transaction. Now, the event log can tell me that, but we need to know the transaction ID of this transaction, and that's not something that's readily available here directly within Church360 Ledger. We have to do a few things to get to that. So what we can do is we can take advantage of the developer console of Google Chrome in order to find this. Now, don't worry, that's a lot less intimidating than it sounds. So what I'm going to do to access the developer console, and this is even before I open up the transaction, is I'm going to go ahead and right-click anywhere where I don't have a link that I can click on to jump to like somewhere else on my site. Then I'm going to go to Inspect, and this is going to open the developer console. Now the part we're interested in looking at is under Network, and then after I have the Network tab pulled up, now I can go ahead and select my transaction. So I'm going to scroll down here. Here's my transaction that I'm interested in looking up. I'm going to click that, and three things are going to pop over here in the Network tab. What we're interested in specifically is under Revisions, though. So I'm going to click Revisions, and you can see it gives me the ID right here, 1534438. 1534438. That's the transaction ID of this particular transaction. So what I can do now is I can close out of my developer console, close out of the transaction, and then I click on the gear icon here and go to my event log. So now what I'll need to do over here in my event log is I'll want to set the date range. Now remember that the date the transaction was entered for doesn't necessarily match the date it was entered into the system. So a transaction entered on March 24th doesn't guarantee that that transaction is also going to appear on that same date. So the problem with this, so we do need to kind of cast a broad net. Now, typically you can most of the time assume that a transaction entered within a particular year, entered for a particular year, happened within that year. Not always, but it's a pretty decent assumption. So I usually like to go in here and set it to the year of that transaction, in this case 2021. Next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold down the Control key on my keyboard and then press F. That's going to bring up the search box here inside of Church360 Ledger. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to type in the transaction ID. So thinking back, that was 1534438, and there it is. See that transaction right here, and I can verify that's the same transaction just by clicking on it, and in fact it is the $500 transfer from March 24th, and I can see that was entered on March 24th, so in this case the transaction date and the entry date did coincide, and I can see who entered that. It looks like it was my associate Tim here, so he was the one who went ahead and entered that particular transaction. So there we go. That's how we can track down this information in our event log. So you do have to kind of find that transaction ID first, and that's maybe the trickiest part of this all, but all in all, it's pretty easy to do. I hope this helped answer any questions you might have about tracking down your transactions in the event log, but if you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call. Our number is 1-800-346-6120, or you can send us an email at support@cts.cph.org. My name is Jordan, and you guys have a wonderful day.